Yo, what is going on, everybody? I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome into today's video, which is going to be my DBD map tier list. So in this one, I'm going to be showing you guys my favorite maps based upon ones that I like and ones that I dislike. Obviously, I play Survivor, so this is coming from a Survivor perspective, not necessarily which ones are better for Survivor, and this is going to be completely my opinion. If at any point you think that a certain map that you play is more fun than the one that I listed, then be sure to drop a comment below and let's have a discussion. Okay, and first up, we have Midwidge. So Midwidge is a indoor map and it is based upon a school from Silent Hill. The design is pretty cool. From my perspective, indoor maps aren't necessarily my favorites, to be honest. I find that with majority of this map, I find movement can be quite hard and I feel quite boxed in. It's quite hard to get up to the second floor quite quickly. You're always close to the killer, which I'm not really a fan of. Generators can also be a little bit hard to find. So with Midwidge, I'm going to be putting Midwidge in at meh. Next up, we have Dead Dog Saloon. So first off, this map looks absolutely gorgeous in my opinion. They really nailed the saloon cowboy theme of this one. It's got some cool features as well, like where if you repair a generator, you can fall through this little hatch. For gameplay, however, though, I find that this map is okay in a regard of some certain loops and stuff like that. But this is where we started to see a big implement of breakable walls. And personally, I'm not the biggest fan of these, to be honest. But I do also like the fact that you can hide in these bushes. So that's also a cool feature. I think with this one, I am going to put this one in at okay. Following on from that one, we have Hawkins. So straight away, you'll know that Hawkins is in a laboratory from Stranger Things. If anyone's seen Stranger Things, it's a very, very cool TV series on Netflix. I really recommend watching it. So visually, I think this map is awesome. I love the Stranger Things feel to it. The gameplay, however, it takes a bit of a turn. So again, we've got a very boxed in, limited indoor map, and there is 2 floors. And the big downside with this is that the upstairs, you're always hearing the killer's terror radius because you're pretty much just on top of the base level. I find that there's not really that great loops like anywhere in this map. The movement is really hard because there's so many little boxed rooms and shut doors, and I just really don't like that sort of playstyle. Even when I play killer on this map, I don't really enjoy it. I'm really not a fan. I absolutely dislike this map in terms of gameplay style. Moving on from that one, we have the Ormond rework. So while filming this has just got reworked. So with Ormond, you'll now see that there is a very cool snow visual mechanic, which looks absolutely great. They really nailed the job with this one. And not only that, but Ormond looks amazing, exactly like how they wanted it to be when this first got released. But the question is, how does the gameplay pan out? Well, I actually think that they've improved Ormond. I think Ormond is fantastic. It's got a good balance of high, medium, and low cover, so this is good against certain killers. And it was a very good map before, but I really enjoy this now. There are some great places where a lot of skill-based chases come into it, and that's really what I'm about with Dead by Daylight when I'm writing a map, is how fair it is based upon a skill-based chase. So in my opinion, I'm putting Ormond in at the favourites. Be sure to let me know in the comments, guys, whether you like this rework or dislike it. I think they've done a fantastic job with this one. Moving on from that one, we have the Sanctum of Wrath, which is a Yamoka map. Now, I think when it comes to comparing the 2 Yamoka maps, this one's probably, in my opinion, a bit less fun than the other one. And with this map, it's kind of a bit like a game of 2 halves. You've got one half on the one side of the big Sanctum Temple in the middle, and then you've also got the other half on the other side. This does cause quite a bit of 3-gen problems as well, and you've obviously got what I'm going to call the main building, which is that big temple thing, which isn't really that great for looping, to be honest. However, the walls and the loops are decent on this map. However, I'm going to put this one in at meh. Following up after that one with another Yamoka map, it's Family Residence. And in Family Residence, the main building is a lot different to the past one, and you'll see that this one's got a lot more looping opportunities and a lot more space to move around, and you don't feel as boxed in as the other map. And this one I prefer a lot more. It's got good walls, it's got good loops, and I feel like it's a pretty fair game on this one. Everything's kind of spread out nice and evenly. I'm going to put this one in at okay. It's a little bit better than that past one in my opinion. So yeah. And just after that one, we've got Gideon Meat Plant. So straight away, you'll know that this map is another indoor map. It's kind of like loads of boxed in rooms again. Not as bad as like Hawkins, but there is different like tiles essentially. Now, most of your looping opportunity outside of pallets is going to be downstairs through window vaults and sort of stuff like that. Upstairs, it's going to be more dependent on pallets. There isn't really many windows on, so the gameplay feels drastically different on both levels. One downside to this map is that it can be quite hard to find gens, and also it's extremely dark, and even with my brightness filters on, which I'll link here, it is extremely dark and way too dark to even be playable in my opinion. I'm going to put Gideon in at meh for my personal opinion from playing Survivor. Just after that one, we have Badam Preschool. Now, with Badam Preschool, there's like 5 different map variants, but I'm just going to sum this all into one just for the sake of this video. 3 of them are just tiles that are different, and then the other one is slightly smaller. It's a sort of town-shaped map that is based around a school with a underground basement. There's only a couple of loops that you can commonly kind of rely on because there's so many variants of this map, and it's very difficult to keep on top of what map has what loops. And that can be a little bit of a problem because it kind of messes with your muscle memory, because you'll go to a certain area thinking, I can loop this, and then there's not a pallet there or something, and it can mess you up a little bit. I'm going to put this one in at okay. After that one, we have Grim Pantry from the Swamp Realm. So with this map, you'll see that it's quite marshy, and that with this one, it's kind of built around sort of like a main fishing harbor place, and there is some spreaded docks around as well. This does also have another building as well as the shack, so it is very nice to loot. The map seems evenly spread out, and there's obviously the downstairs of the main building that you can kind of run around as well. So with Grim Pantry, I think I'm going to put Grim Pantry in at great. Moving on from that one, we have the Pale Rose. With this map, it's all centered around a massive big boat that has a generator on top of it, and of course you can loop it, etc. Again, this is a swamp map, and it is quite marshy, and it has a few external docks that has a few lockers and a few looping opportunities below them. I think this map design is made pretty well, and everything is kind of in the right places. I'm going to be putting this one in at great. Following on from that one, we have Larry's. You'll see that in this map, there's a lot of walls and windows. Now, when this first came out, everybody hated it, but it's actually grown on me quite a lot, and I don't really mind getting Larry's now, to be honest. It's definitely one of my more favorite indoor maps now, as there's quite a lot you can do, and there's many builds that can kind of benefit from this map as well. The one downside, however, with this map is a bit, again, that generators can get a bit confusing to find and to tell where they are for your teammates, because every room looks the same. It's quite hard to coordinate yourself, and there's not really any main features that you can kind of go off. I'm going to put Larry's in at okay. Just after that one, we have Mother's Dwelling. So this is a red forest map. With Mother's Dwelling, you'll see that there's a big sort of lodge essentially in the middle of the map, and there is a lot of loops outside of it. And windows in and out, and a few pallets around this big main building. There is also like a sort of little wooden cabin as well just to the side of that, which has a nice window inside of it as well. It's another great balanced map in terms of where the loops are, and I don't really mind playing this map. I'm going to put Mother's Dwelling in at great. Moving on from that one, we have the temple. It is all centered around a massive temple that has an underground layer to it as well. Now, downstairs in that temple for looping is not really that great. Neither is the top side to it that great either. It has a few windows which can be useful, and you have a few walls and loops just around it. That being said, however, I think things are scattered around correctly, so I'm going to be putting the temple in at meh. Next up, we have Haddenfield, also known as Lumpkin Lane. This is a bit of a make or break for most people. Seems really small, but it's essentially one road with houses either side of it, and that's pretty much it. Now, with this map, there is a lot of fences which some players really dislike or some players quite enjoy. But with this map, there's a lot of gens spread out in these buildings. With most of these buildings, there is a window on top of a sort of roof porch, if you will. And there's a lot of height advantage to survivors in this map. This map is extremely survivor-sided. So with this one, I'm going to put this one in at great. After that one, we have Father Campbell's Chapel. In this one, you'll see that there's a big church smack bang in the middle of the map, again with a lot of loops around it and outside, but there is quite a few windows inside that chapel which you can use to your advantage, and with some variants of the map design, it can be very good. I think this map is distributed well, and there is a pretty balanced map design with it. This map looks cool, and I do quite like enjoying playing this, to be honest. So as long as you know your loops, it can be pretty decent. So I'm going to be putting Father Campbell's Chapel in at great. Moving on from that, we have Disturbed Ward, which is another Crotus map. And in this one, we have a big sort of asylum smack bang in the middle of the map again. Now, the Disturbed Ward building can be very, very, very nice to loot because there's quite a few windows where the killer literally has to vault something if they want to continue that chase. Not only that, it is quite strong inside the ward with its pallet distribution, so that's a nice factor as well. So with this map all being said, I think I'm going to put this map in at great. I do quite like this map. Okay, now we're moving on to the Wreckers realm. Now with this, I will just say that this has all just been reworked, and say that in my opinion, they've really screwed Wreckers up in terms of gameplay. A lot of dead zones. Okay, and first up we have Wreckers Yard. And with this map, you'll see that there's kind of like 2 end units and a big open middle. I will say that the pallet distribution is extremely weird, where it's kind of a bit more heavy on the pallet side on certain parts of the map. And then they've kind of just almost completely forgot about the pallets on certain areas of the map. Just the utter fact that the amount of big dead zones there are. There's even gens that have literally no cover around them. I'm really interested to see the survival rates for these Wreckers maps, because with Wreckers Yard, I'm really gutted to say that I'm putting this one in heavily dislike. This is one of my least favorite maps now. After that one, we have Blood Lodge. There is a few okay loops. I don't feel as if there's really any strong loot mechanics that I can kind of use regularly to my advantage. I'm kind of relying on pallets, but the Blood Lodge is somewhat decent to loop in that regard, so that's why it's a little bit of a better one. But this one has a few dead zones, but definitely not as bad as the last map. So with that being said, I'm going to put Blood Lodge in at meh. After that one, we are reviewing Azeroth's resting place. That there's not really any good loops. You have that big lorry, which really is not that great of a loop, to be honest. And again, this map suffers very bad with the fact of being in pure dead zones, and the pallet distribution is just all over the place. The main building has taken a few hits with some breakable walls, so this map wasn't the best to begin with, but it's actually made worse in my opinion now, so this one's definitely going into the heavily dislike. Following on from this one, we have Wretched Shop. Now with Wretched Shop, you'll see that it's based around a big garage. Before, this had certain pallets near the windows, which made this quite an okay loop. And there was 2 windows, and you could follow through when you ran through. This map has been absolutely destroyed into oblivion. So a prime example is that if you see that I'm running through getting chased here, this window literally brings me into the garage, okay? However, the killer can easily run around the side and in through the entrance point of the garage. Now, they've actually blocked the external window that most people would usually leap out of. If the killer doesn't actually break this breakable wall to the side of me, I enter this garage with no other exit point other than the window that I just came through or the way that the killers just came in. And again, this map suffers with extreme dead zones where you're just kind of left in big areas where there's just nothing but trees. With Wretched Shop, that is definitely one of the worst maps as well in the game. That's going straight into heavily dislike. After that one, we have Gas Haven. Now, this one is a little bit of a better version of the Wreckers maps. It's not as bad, but it's still not great. With this map, it's all focused down around a big gas station, as you might have guessed. Now, they have closed pretty much almost every window in the gas station. There is still one pallet on the inside, and then there is one on the inside of the garage as well. Everything feels a little bit more spaced out now. And a little bit further away than everything kind of used to be. So I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it is definitely better than the previous 4. So I'm going to be putting this one in at meh. Following up after that, we now are moving on to the farm realm. So now we have Fractured Kelshead. This map is all focused on a massive barn that you can loot quite well as well. I do quite like farm maps. I do quite like playing them. On both parties actually, survivor or killer. Like most farm maps, you'll see that there is a lot of high cover mixed with medium cover. There's not an awful lot of low cover, which is quite nice. So with that being said, I'm going to put Kelshead in at faves. I really enjoy this map. Just after that one, we have Rotten Fields. So with this map, you'll see that there's a lot of corn, and that's kind of just majority of this map, to be honest. And then you also have a few little diggers that you can kind of use to your advantage as well to loop. If you can 360 pretty well, then this map can be quite nice for you because the killer's vision gets quite obstructed with the corn, and you can hide in the corn as well if you're that sort of player. I'm going to be putting Rotten Fields in at okay. Just after that one, we have Tormund Creek. So in this one, you'll see that there's a big fallen over silo that usually has a generator inside of it and a couple of windows and pallets around the outside. Now this map does feel quite wide, which I quite enjoy, and there is obviously the shack in one side, this big silo on the other, and in between that there is a nice distribution of pallets, other walls, etc., and other loops. Again, a decent balance between high and medium cover. So I'm going to be putting Tormund Creek in at great. Just after that we have Thompson House. This is actually my most favorite farm map. I really enjoy this one. With this map, it's all centered around a large house, which you can go up to the second floor as well in this one, and there's a few windows upstairs, usually a generator around that house. However, there's a few fences and a pallet, and there just seems to be a lot of nice skilled based loops on this one. And you've also got Cow Tree, which I'm a big fan of, which is another great loop as well as the shack. So you get a lot of nice strong looping opportunities with this map. So Thompson House, I'm chucking this one into my favorite list. I do quite like this map. And then we have Rancid Abattoir. This map feels rather small because it's all based around sort of slaughterhouse, really. So you always do feel quite close to the killer. And the abattoir has kind of weird loops. It has a couple of windows, but then it also has this sort of like inside fence mechanic, and I'm not really that big of a fan of. And then there's a few loops just outside of this. So I'm going to be putting this one in at okay. And now we're jumping on to the final realms, which is Mcmillan. So first up we have Groaning Storehouse. It includes this big warehouse building, and then it kind of just spans out from there, really. However, they did slightly nerf the storehouse for looping, which is a bit of a shame because they put a breakable wall right next to a decent looping window. And then they also put in a window right next to an opening where a killer can just walk around, so that's a bit of a weird window. The rest of the map is somewhat decent. It's just kind of that main building isn't that great, to be honest. So I'm going to be putting this one in at okay. After that one we have Suffocation Pit, and in this map you have the shack, and then you have one side that has this coal mine essentially. That is very, very fun for looping. Has a few pallets and windows around and inside that, so and a few lockers as well. And I think that is just a nice building to loop, you know. This map design, however, does sometimes suffer with the regen problem, where it's kind of split into two halves, where one side might get finished, leaving the other one exposed. But as long as you can kind of avoid that, which is a lot more easier on this map to do. And then this map has a lovely amount of loops spread very evenly throughout the map. I've had some extremely fun chases on this map, so I'm going to be putting this one in at my favorites. Just after that we have the classic Ironworks of Misery, and this map is all built around a massive factory. So they did slightly nerf this by putting a door right next to your main sort of window loop in this map. They have kind of complemented that a little bit though by putting a fairly stronger window upstairs. The rest of this map has fairly decent distribution between pallets, walls, and the shack of course as well. So I'm going to be putting this map in at great. Moving on from that one, we have Shelter Woods, which is a big pet hate for most survivors. The main part of this map is a big tree. So your shack's kind of your main building, really, and then you have a few walls and stuff and loops that you can use. So the middle of the map kind of just feels completely empty, so you're just kind of playing around this sort of map. I very rarely survive. I'm going to put this one into heavily dislike. And last but certainly not least, we have the good old classic Coal Tower. Now, this map is rather small, yet very enjoyable. The distribution between pallets and windows and other loops is very, very nice. It's all in a nice area, not too far from each loop. You have the main Coal Tower, which has some nice windows inside of it. And then, of course, you have the shack. It does feel just really nicely, evenly distributed. And there is a lot of fair, skilled, matched loops as well. I think this map is very, very nice, and it still looks great, and they've done a great job. So I'm going to be putting the good old Coal Tower in at my favorites. These here we are going to leave because they were the variants for the preschool. Let us know in the comments below, guys, what you guys think of the Ormond and Ruckers changes, because I don't really see many people discussing this, and I really want to get in depth on this conversation. But that was my DBD maps tier list. Let us know whether you agree or disagree with this list, and comment below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.